So welcome to another episode of, I guess I kind of need a name for this. Like my campaign e-blog or whatever it is. Well, it's got to be better than that. We're talking a little bit about my race for city council, some of the things that are emerging, and also any questions that come in. I put anthonywiener.com on the screen here. If you're one of the people that would like to submit a question, go ahead and do it. So there's a lot of attention being paid to what here in municipal politics, what should our relationship be to the challenges going on in Washington around President Trump. And we're going to get to that. I'm going to talk about that in future episodes, but I want to talk a little bit today about the relationship between New York City and our overlords in Albany, because they're trying to figure out their budget in the end of their session up there. And I'm running against a person who is a state assemblyman, among other people. And I just have to say that one of the things that I think I'm going to be talking about, and I talk about a lot on the campaign trail, and a lot of New Yorkers it connects with them, although they're not process people, is that in Albany, so much of what they're doing is interfering with our lives. And I think that to run for city council means to say to people in Albany, get out of our lives. I'll give you some examples of that. I mentioned this in the first episode of this thing here. If you want to open up a bar in New York City and you want to have a liquor license and you're opening up a bar on First Avenue or on Avenue A, the agency that decides whether you're going to get a liquor license is the state liquor authority up in Albany. If you want to pass a law that if you want to pass a law or you want to expand the number of, pick a thing, charter schools, you have to go to Albany to get approval to do that. If you want to put a speed camera on a traffic light, you have to go to Albany to get approval to do that. And I just don't think that there's any rational reason why it should be that way. Once upon a time, 1970s maybe, when we were in fiscal rooms and we needed Albany to kind of keep an eye on us a little bit, maybe you can argue we needed that kind of supervision. Not any longer. And so much about what I plan to talk about during this race for city council this year, and I'm running a district in Lower Manhattan, is that tension, that fight. That's what we should be doing. Even today, as they're up in Albany trying to figure out what to do about various issues, so many of them would be like, let's just let the cities do what they think is right to do. And instead, they are getting in our way in so many, many different ways. And it's not just with their votes. It's also with the creation of authorities like the MTA and the Port Authority and these other authorities that exist that are other ways to end or diminish or dilute accountability. And so when if you're a voter in New York City, you're probably like, I don't care, state, city, who cares who makes the law? Well, the problem becomes when you have legislators in places like Buffalo or Syracuse weighing in on things that impact the city of New York. Even if you think they might be right in their position, it dilutes the accountability that we should have. And one of the things I continually am going to fight for, both as a candidate and as a city councilman, is something that I did when I was in public life before, and that is accountability. You, the voter, should know who did what and who to blame for something. And let me say one other thing about this. Why does it continue to be this way? Because so many interest groups want it to be this way. A union that wants to get a benefit, they want to be able to go to the city and then go to the state. A special interest group that wants to have its way. They want to be able to go to different venues to contest their fight. It helps them to have this kind of multi-level jurisdiction about things. Now, is this in the category of kind of like an insidery issue? Maybe yes, but I don't think so. Because when we have challenges in our community, to the extent that local elected officials can point at each other and say it's their fault, maybe it's the kind of thing that politicians don't mind, but the voters have given up trying to change. I mean, I'll give you one other example of this. The state legislature passed the law decriminalizing marijuana, having possession of small amounts of marijuana, something I totally support. And by the way, criminal law does make sense for the state legislature to do because you want the same laws throughout the whole state. Totally makes sense. But rather than have the enforcement authority being at local levels where we have police, there's like a state police, but there's nothing like the local police departments. They said, no, we, the state legislature, are going to create something called a Cannabis Control Commission, and we're going to take the authority away from the local authorities to enforce the law. So what did we have? dozens and dozens of illegal pot shops springing up, people smoking and selling pot in public places with impunity. And so whatever you think about that, about the outcome, and whatever you think about marijuana, the enforcement of the laws are too diffuse. So that's one of the things that I'm going to be talking about in this campaign. And I'm also going to be saying that anyone who runs for the city council who has been in Albany definitely should have some accountability around why they want to come to the city now and have authority over the city things, but they're willing to trump that authority when they were at Albany. So that's some of my thoughts about this. Maybe not the most important or pressing thing, but it's something that's going on now because the state legislature is weighing in on their budget. And by the way, I have a whole theory about how we should be dealing with the Trump administration and how that should interact with our city governments. Maybe I'll do that with the next episode, but I do appreciate you listening to this one. AnthonyWeiner.com is where you can go to leave a Weiner at AnthonyWeiner.com is where you can send me emails. And I do appreciate you listening. Take care.